PowerPlayChess, brought to you in association with Kagi. I received a very nice message the other day that started like this. Love your channel and chessable course on the Kalashnikov Sicilian. Well, if you want to get in my good books, that is a pretty good way to start. Now, this message came from Khrapko, and she continued like this. I've been playing the Kalashnikov for a couple of years now, and nobody wants to play the open Sicilian with me anymore. You see, the Kalashnikov is that dangerous a weapon. Anyhow, you've mentioned send you games featuring the Kalashnikov. I have a good win from October. It was played in the Bayern Open. And I beat an FM with black in a classical game. Perhaps you'll find it interesting for your channel. Well, I certainly do find it interesting, and we're going to have a look at the game now. It's really instructive and has a strategically very, very sound, and has a very nice tactic at the end. So, as I mentioned, this message was from Khrapko. She's originally from Belarus, but she's been living in Munich for the past 5 years. She went to study there. And although she started at a young age playing chess at the age of 6, she really took to the game when she moved to Munich and met up with a group of German chess players about her age. And they've been playing in bars and in cafes in Munich for several years. She says, I regard myself as an amateur player who does it for fun. Well, that's the very definition of an amateur. Someone who loves something, of course. The goal is, however, to get the FM title one day. Well, if she plays like she does in this game, then I'm sure she won't have any problem achieving the title. So when this was played, Margarita was rated 2170, and her opponent, Philipp May, is an FM from Germany. He's rated 2313 when this game was played, so a bit of a rating gap. And yes, it's an open Sicilian, and Margarita plays e5. So this is the start of the Kalashnikov. Now, as I've mentioned, there are lots of possibilities for white in this position, but really only one move tests black, and that's knight b5, wanting to come in on d6. And after d6, this is really the start of the Kalashnikov. And there are two main moves here, either c4 with a big clamp in the centre, or knight c3, and that's the move that was played here. So now we push the knight back to the corner and bishop e7. So this is my recommendation in the Kalashnikov course and on the chessable course and the book as well. So this knight is sidelined for the moment, so it really should come back into the middle, and that was played knight c4. So this is the main line, knight e3. So this knight finds a nice square on e3, looking at the outposts on f5 and d5, but of course it's taken time, and black is slightly ahead in development. So there's a balance in this position. And bishop d3 played. Well, in my Kalashnikov book, there we are, I wrote, white develops solidly, protecting the e-pawn and preparing to plant one of the knights on d5. There we go. Well, I'll stand by what I wrote. Yeah, it's a very solid move, protecting these pawns and preparing to castle quickly. And Margarita plays exactly the line that I recommend, and knight b4. So it would be very nice to grab that bishop, and I think bishop e2 is the best move. And then bishop e6. Yeah. This is such a lovely position for that bishop. It's such a chunky square. It's supported by the f-pawn. It looks at d5. It looks over towards a2 as well. And black is able to play this bishop to this fine square because black has carved out territory using that e-pawn. So it's a very classical opening, actually. It's the Kalashnikov. It's really about the centre, and black has a really nice central position. So this knight is pushed back. And now the bishop returns to d3. So there's a little dance going on there. Right, what should black do now? Well, Margarita follows exactly the line that I recommend in the course, knight d7. So this knight is dancing round to c5 to hassle that bishop again. And c5 is very often a very good square for that knight because it also not only looks at the bishop but looks at the e-pawn as well. Knight d5. So both players following exactly one of the lines in the course. And here I actually recommended bishop g5, and I think that is the most accurate move in this position. So I call this the breakout bishop. So on e7, the bishop doesn't stand very well, blocked in by that pawn. But on g5, this is a really good diagonal for the bishop. Looks at that knight on e3, which in turn supports the knight on d5. So it's like it's found an open window into white's position. So yeah, I think that's the most accurate move. But instead, Margarita played knight c5 straight away, and I think Philip Mai, her opponent here, plays very well. I think b4 is a good move here. So yes, it's nice to grab that bishop, but this pawn kind of restricts black a little bit on the queen side, and that exchange has sort of straightened out white's pieces. Bishop g5, there we go, that bishop heads for g5. And yes, I like the breakout bishop. And here bishop b2 is played, and it's an understandable move. Seems like it connects the rooks, but actually I don't think that's the best move. I think here white had a nice opportunity to play knight f5. Well, looks nice when the knights are on the outpost like this. And that exchange sort of straightens out white's pieces. The rooks are connected. I don't think this is too bad for black. I think this is best, just exchanging off those knights. But, well, yeah, I think after c4, white's position is a little bit preferable. I think white stands slightly better, but it's playable for black. So I think that's what white should do. But after bishop b2, I think this is okay for black now. So Margarita plays queen b8. That's a very sophisticated move, just making room for this rook to head across the board. I don't see anything wrong, by the way, with just rook c8. You can see that b pawn, yes, it claims some territory, prevents a knight coming here, for example, but it does weaken some squares on the c file. So I think rook c8 is a good move straight away. But queen b8, as I said, a very sophisticated move. So the rook comes across to d8 to protect the d pawn, and the bishop comes back to c1. So I think that's a clear indication that, yeah, white regretted playing the bishop to b2. I still think knight f5 is not a bad idea, actually. So bishop c1, and now queen b7. And I think after this, I start to like black's position quite a lot. b7 is often an excellent square for the queen in the Kalashnikov. It looks at a key square on d5 and can often help black conquer that square. And also, looks in two good directions here as well. And we're making room for the rook to come to c8. So yeah, that's, of course, such an important file in the Sicilian generally, and very much so in this particular position as this pawn has advanced to b4. And that does weaken all these squares down the c file. So we'll see that has significance a little later on. So rook c1 played, yeah. And yes, that's another of my favourite themes in the Kalashnikov. This is, I call this the Trojan horse. The knight throws itself in on this outpost supported by our pawn on e5. And that knight is really menacing. Very often I've given examples of this Trojan horse where you actually sacrifice a pawn in playing knight d4, and often that can open a lot of lines, the c-file, sometimes opening this diagonal. In this case, well, it isn't even a sacrifice, it's just a really menacing square for that knight, and already this is very pleasant. If that knight's attacked, then it can hop into b3, and now black's pressure tells, because it's possible to take this. Obviously knight takes not good because that bishop can be taken, those pieces combine well. And after e takes, let's exchange off the bishop. And this is a really nice position for black, because you can see that pawn on c3 is a backward pawn, and black can, for example, double on the c-file, get pressure there very easily. And with the pawn on d5, I discussed this kind of pawn structure quite a lot. This is such a nice structure for black compared to white's. Black's pawn structure is compact. There's going to be pressure on the c-file, and later on there could well be the opportunity to get this 4-3 majority rolling on the king side. Yeah, that's really nice. The pawn, nice pawn steamroller. Black has a big positional advantage there. Nevertheless, that's what white should play. Instead, knight f1 was played. Understandably, in a way, because there's pressure on white's position. You want to exchange pieces to relieve that pressure. But let's have a look at what happens. Bishop takes, knight takes. Okay, I'm going to hand it over to you. How should black play in this position? Black to play. Cheers. You have a think, I'll have a drink. Margarita found a really nice tactic. She exchanged on d5. Now, don't play queen takes d5, because then you lose a piece. Pin and win. Not good. But instead, rook c3. Boom! Now that is a killer. Great move. See, I told you after b4, those squares along the c-file were going to be weak. In this case, it's c3. Can't take that with a pawn, of course. And we can't take the rook because of a nasty knight fork on e2. The Trojan horse spells disaster for white. And this just breaks white's position. If queen e4, then you can push the queen away and take on c2. That's a clear extra pawn. So queen f1 played, and then simply rook takes c2, and yeah, it's an extra pawn. Knight b3 played, knight takes a3. Okay, so white is thinking, okay, he's given another pawn, but maybe this knight can get in on c6. I mean, I don't think it matters that much, because this knight could find a square here. And in fact, Margarita plays very practically. Well, I mean, this is forced now, but returns the pawn. So black is still a pawn up, but that just kind of simplifies the task. So not only is black still a pawn up, but has a really nice structure. So once again, it's these beautiful, regular, compact 5 pawns on the king side and in the center that give black a clear advantage here. It's not just the extra pawn, but positionally this is excellent because white has these 2 isolated pawns as well. So strategically a winning position. h3 from white, yeah, there's a potential backrack problem, and g6 from black, absolutely solves any problems on the back rank, so the king is now beautifully secure on g7. Rook a1 played. Well, do you know what? This is so typical of when players are defending. They often feel the need to play something active. But this white's hopes are dashed. I think it's better to defend passively here and play rook b1. I mean, black still has a technical task to win this position. I mean, this is a very nice position for black. You know, you can just creep forward nice and slowly, and you know, perhaps even later on advance f5. But, you know, black still needs to win that one. Maybe queen b5 as well. So I think rook b1 is more stubborn. But rook a1, yeah, I'm afraid this one loses straight away to this. And queen takes f2. White hasn't actually lost a pawn, but rook c1 is just an absolute killer. White's king is in massive trouble. And the game ended like this. Rook c6 and queen f4 check. And that is the end of the game. Obviously g3, queen f2 is mate. Oh, we may as well. Let's go the whole way. Well, I thought that was an excellent game strategically and also tactically. I should, just coming back to this tactic, you know, I've seen this on so many occasions. It's a little bit unusual in that this rook isn't actually taking anything on c3, but I just want to show you a couple of other examples. So, for example, here, this is a game between Dukic and Takayev, played online, and the game went like this. Classic minority attack from black to break up these pawns. And I think white was so wrapped up with sort of defending against black's strategy that this blunder happened. Queen here. And queen takes c3. There we go. Classic Trojan horse. And one more example of that. So this is a game, a classical game, played by Yevgeny Sveshnikov, playing black. One of the, well, really, he was the creator of the Kalashnikov system. He developed so many of the key ideas in it. And again, very nice minority attack with b5, chipping away at, in this case, the Morozzi bind. And white was so caught up with strategy that, again, this tactic was forgotten. But I'm telling you, I've seen this on so many occasions. It's very, very interesting. So, well played to Maharita. Really nice game. I should finish with that position on the board, which was her game. And so, well, I'm going to be showing you more games played with the Kalashnikov sent in by you, the viewers of the channel. And don't forget, the book is available from New in Chess, and the course is available on Chessable as well, if you'd prefer the digital version. Thanks for watching.